Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to discuss another room on TryHackMe, and it's complimentary. I mean, the room name is complimentary. So it's a room on the hackers holiday event on the TryHackMe. It's going really awesome so far. We have dealt with the AI security. We have covered the web exploitation as well. And today, let's see what we got. So today we got the cloud, and pretty much you can read the description on your own. So one thing that I would like to mention is when we are generally dealing with the cloud-based capture the flag challenges or generally encountering any real-world web applications, the most critical security vulnerabilities that we should test is how the application is handling the unauthenticated guest access or the user access. And we are going to cover that in this room too. So looks like we need to see at the unauthentication point of view because there is this no sign up as well. So pretty much, yeah, and there's this today's objectives, track down the AWS mechanism, basically taking a look at who is issuing the credentials and behind the backend mechanism, using those credentials to dump more of the data from the database and retrieve the flag. And then there is this hint or the story that you can say the app never once generally asked me to log in, so and it's still my name and I open it. So pretty much what we are going to deal with is unauthenticated guest access to dump the entire database, and the description and as well as the story from the 0xMIA gives the clue what we need to investigate. So we have the web. I think, yeah, we have this target over here. Don't know why I didn't copy the whole. Never mind, I'm just gonna remove these, and we got an S3 as well. So yeah, we are getting a, a web application over here. The first thing that generally we do is to look on the developer tools, reload it, and see what are the requests that are going forward. So there's this guest request over here that is getting some JavaScript and pretty much not that much interesting. Well, then we got this app.js, and let's filter out for the JS files directly, and pretty much want to look at the source code of this JavaScript, and I am going to see the response over here. So we got on the response of this request, the headers were pretty much common, some AWS request IDs, and pretty much not interesting. Let's look at the response. So there is this JavaScript, the identity pool ID, the AWS region, and table name. And the identity pool ID is generally configured from the point of view over here to grant some temporary AWS access to the unauthenticated guest visitors. And for that, the region as well as the table name for storing the guest profiles is configured. Then we got some AWS config and yeah, pretty much that's the identity. And let's try to use the CI over here. So I copied the temporary credentials in this identity ID over here. And basically what are these? These are the temporary credentials that are used for storing up the guest profiles. And we can generally, what we can do is we can request an identity ID via the AWS CLI, because we have identified this variable, which is identity pool ID. And we can use the AWS, basically the AWS Cognito issues the temporary credentials, and it requires an identity ID tied to that pool. So we can just run AWS Cognito, if I spell it right, identity get ID, and pretty much gonna give the region of US East 1, and then the identity pool ID of this particular temporary credential. I'm just gonna copy it and just gonna paste it, and let's see. Oh, sorry, I just don't know why there was this CWS. And pretty much we should have the identity ID, and yeah, we were able to request an identity ID via the AWS CLI. Basically, what this command is doing is it's asking the AWS Cognito to generate a unique session identifier, which is called the identity ID for an unauthenticated user requesting to access that pool. And as a result, we were able to get the identity ID. Now, the last thing that we are going to do is to exchange the identity ID for temporary AWS credentials. So we are going to pass the identity ID back to the Cognito to receive temporary AWS security keys, the access for the access, and we can use the AWS Cognito identity get credentials for that. I'm just gonna, oh sorry, I just didn't copy the AWS identity ID, and yeah, this is the ID which I'm just gonna echo out to the file, which I'm gonna give the name ID for now. And yeah, so now I'm gonna use the AWS Cognito identity get credentials for the identity, if I spell it right, and the region would be the US. Let me check it again. Cat identity ID, yeah, US East 1. So sorry for the inconvenience. I am just gonna give it US East 1, and then I'm gonna give the identity ID, and sorry, I didn't note down the ID too. So this is our ID, which I'm gonna just do it again. No, and the region is US, and the last thing, I don't know. Sorry. I'm just gonna do identity ID and ID, and this time cognito identity get credentials for identity, and I'm just not gonna use it, just gonna do without it, and got the identity ID to be this, and pretty much let's look at the result, and I'm gonna explain you. Okay, so this command basically exchanges, it basically tries to get the unauthenticated the identity ID for the actual temporary AWS keys that were generally linked back to the pool of the guest role, and basically the unauthenticated role. So now we have the identity ID, the key ID, the secret key, and now we are going to load the temporary credentials, and we are gonna do, I'm very bad at CLI. I don't know. I think I should improve. So I'm gonna do export AWS access key ID would be pretty much this, and export AWS secret key secret access key would be pretty much this, and so I was getting some errors when I was trying to configure the credentials, temporary credentials on the AWS CLI. Just a quick recall, we ran this command over here, this command, and basically we exchange the unauthenticated identity ID for getting the actual temporary AWS IAM keys that were linked to the identity pool's guest role, and we did get the JSON as the output, and then I was encountering some certain errors, and there was this command that yeah, This one was the valid, this one was invalid for some reasons, I don't know. I ran this and I exported them up as the environmental variables. Basically, we were using the local AWS CLI to perform the subsequent request using these temporary credentials, and we needed that. To request the AWS security token service and to verify which IAM role we were currently operating as. So now we will do AWS STS get caller identity, and this would return the identity details for the active AWS credentials that we set up in the environment. And here we have the complementary cognito auth role or here you can see. So this means that we successfully have assumed this role, and on the hint as well as on the challenge description, the goal of this challenge was to see if the unauthenticated or the guest identity cloud user could read the data belonging to the other hotel guest. So the table was dynamo db, and in the initial I think I saved a cat identity ID. So we are going to request a dynamo DB table that was being used by the web applications client side, and we are going to try to bypass the client side filtering. And we will be using the AWS Dynamo DB, and name would be the table name would be this. And what this command would do, it will scan and retrieve all the records from the targets table. Basically, our goal was if we could get the user's data or not as a guest user. Complementary guest wellness profiles is all the table that was storing up the unauthenticated or the guest user's data. So we do have an error. Complementary, I think AWS DynamoDB. Let's run the help command to see what we missed. Oh, I think we missed the scan. Yeah. So scan mode over here, and which is going to scan and retrieve all the records. And this should one of this would be having our flag, and yeah, this is our flag. We are going to submit this to complete down our room. So I'm just going to submit the flag, and with that we complete our room. So hope you enjoyed. If anything isn't clear, it was quite a hard room to be honest. And if anything wasn't clear, make sure to leave a comment. I would definitely reply all of it. It was a really technical room, a well developed room, and I would be covering a lot. If it was helpful, do give a like and do give a subscribe. And thanks for watching.